Hello and welcome to my YouTube channel. I think this is my first video filming in the conservatory, but it's actually sunny outside. Obviously I wouldn't be able to film this if it was like heavily raining, it'd be too noisy. Anyway, I've got my little bluebells here and a plant I got for Christmas. Anyway, today I am going to be filming how to get a mortgage and my experiences getting a mortgage as a first time buyer. The things that make me a little bit different are that I was buying by myself, which I suppose a lot of people do. And then I was also on a fixed term contract, which is something banks don't particularly like. And then also I wanted to buy a house that needed a bit of renovation. So I will share my experiences as we go along. Anyway, I've thought of 10 steps and I've written these out on my laptop. So if I'm looking over there, it's just to remember what I'm saying. Anyway, first step is to work on your credit score. So like 1 to 2 years before you are thinking about getting a mortgage or applying for a mortgage, I would recommend getting a credit card. Also, as like a side note, credit cards are good for if you are flying because it gives you more protection if things go wrong. And making big purchases means you have more protection than if you are just buying something with a debit card. So I would really recommend getting a credit card and then making purchases on it. Obviously, like things you're going to buy anyway, and then make sure you pay it off. And this kind of just reassures the bank and makes them feel like they can trust you because you've shown that you are able to borrow money from the bank and pay it back, which is what they need to see. Step 2 would be to calculate how much you can afford. So look at your monthly income and look at your outgoing. So if you're living with family or in a house share, you might not know even like how much council tax is or how much an electricity bill is going to be. So I would recommend looking these up online, or maybe asking friends if you have them living in the area how much it costs living by themselves or like once they've moved away and are living independently. In a lot of cases, your mortgage repayments will actually cost less than your rent. And also this like calculating how much you can afford, you should be doing it with your partner if you're buying a house together. Look at your outgoing, so that'd be like your social life and food and like diesel. All these kind of costs, work out how much is going out every month and how much you actually have. Also, say if you had like a certain amount spare, that probably isn't like, you shouldn't be spending that all on a mortgage because you'd also want to have a bit of money just in case something went wrong in the house, so you're able to continue saving even once you've bought the house. As part of this step, I would also recommend looking at your savings. So maybe you've got a stocks and shares ISA, a normal ISA, and then money like in a current account or like different pots in different places. Just like calculate and like collate how much you actually have everywhere and how much you would actually be able to put down as a deposit. So in my case, I wasn't just looking at the deposit, I was also looking at how much money I needed for renovation. So like costing that up was part of what I did before I even went out and looked at houses. Third step would be to use a mortgage calculator. So you input your deposit. So that might be like £20,000. You would input your annual income. So that might be like £25,000. So if you did a 35-year mortgage term, then the cost would be lower than if you did like a 20-year mortgage term because it's spread out over a longer amount of time. But overall, you will end up spending more on the mortgage because interest rates clock up. As part of this mortgage calculator, you also put in the interest rate. So when I was doing it, it was saying 5.3%, but when I was doing it for buying this house, it was coming up as about 4.9% because I was doing it about a year ago. So things are like changing all the time. So the mortgage calculator is something you can do with your bank. So that could be like Halifax or Santander, but there's also other companies like Rightmove where you can also use a mortgage calculator, but they're all pretty much the same. And they don't really like give you any like benefits if you go with the bank that you're already banking with. So the mortgage calculator will tell you the maximum amounts that you're able to borrow from the bank and how much the monthly repayments would be. So for myself, I didn't really look at that because this wasn't really like something that was interesting to me because I was more keen on buying something that was lower and not sort of maxing out myself and making sure that I was living well below my means. Step 4 would be to go out and visit properties in the area that you want to move to and just start seeing what's on the market, and if your previous calculation kind of lines up, are you able to buy a house, and like what, because I think sometimes photos can be a bit deceptive and make houses look better than they actually are, so it kind of gives you a better idea of your previous calculations and how they are actually going to look in reality. Step 5 would be to research mortgage brokers, or they might also be called mortgage advisors. You might be able to ask a friend or colleague if they have any recommendations, if they have bought a house before, and like ask them who they used. Ideally, I think you should go for one that is not tied into a particular bank, and ask them if they are able to assess the whole market. So like look at all the different banks and all the different mortgage products available. As I mentioned at the start, I was a little bit unique, and going to see a mortgage broker was really important because being a first-time buyer working on a fixed-term contract and wanting to buy a house which they needed quite a lot of renovations meant that some mortgage lenders were just completely ruled out from the start. The mortgage broker has done this like hundreds of times before, often with first-time buyers, so they're able to like know which lenders will be suitable, which lenders won't be suitable, and they can go through a big spreadsheet and look at all the statistics. A mortgage broker will also be able to explain what exactly a fixed-term mortgage is and what a variable-term mortgage is, if you still don't understand that after Googling it, which I still didn't really because it's a little bit complicated. And they will also be able to help with the full mortgage application process. Once you have a mortgage agreement in principle, you can put offers in on a house. Well, I tried putting offers in on a house. I decided to do some sort of random number ending in 300, but it has to be like round numbers to the nearest of 1,000. So I learned that. And sometimes you can just do it over the phone, or sometimes you'd have to write an email and you can try and be like, oh yeah, I really liked your house, it's going to be great for me. And that might help you sometimes, I don't know. Anyway, so I did put offers in on a previous property, but when I bought this house, I was very keen and I asked the estate agent to see the previous person that was trying to buy this house, to see their survey, because they had a full survey done, which meant that I was able to offer several £1,000s less than the asking price based on that survey. And luckily, my first offer was accepted, so there was no back and forth. But my house was previously sold to 2 people, so someone tried to buy it as a buy-to-let, but all the banks were having a panic at that stage, so the sale fell through because they weren't able to get a buy-to-let mortgage. And then the second person, they had this survey done, and the survey said it needed a new roof and too much work, which meant it wasn't viable for them as an investment. So because I knew that the sale had fallen through twice, meant I was able to go in quite a low, well, like not super low, but like I did offer several £1,000s less, and it was accepted pretty much straight away because they wanted to sell the property. Step 7 is once you have your offer accepted, you can make an official mortgage application via the mortgage broker. So I did actually go for a mortgage with Halifax, and at this stage you also need to appoint your conveyancing solicitor. So to do all that, it's a whole process. You like look up online, phone people, get quotes, sort of see. And also if you go for like a solicitor that's near, like local or nearby, means you can actually go and put things into their office in person rather than posting it, and then you have to like wait for the Royal Mail, which is delayed, and all these things. So yeah, I'd recommend going for a conveyancing solicitor that is local. And there is quite a big price disparity, so some of the prices that I went for were actually like £2,000 higher than the price that I actually went for. So yeah, shop around before you appoint someone. Step 8 is the mortgage lender will then do a valuation. They will come to the house and value it. You do not need to be there. The estate agent will be able to let them in, and they basically walk on the property and see whether they think the house is worth what the accepted offer is. So you need to pay the mortgage lender, so I had to pay Halifax about £100 to be able to do this, which is a bit annoying because like if the sale did eventually fall through, that's just money you've lost. But it's like an essential step is to get that valuation. My valuation with Halifax was done pretty quickly. It happened the same week that the offer was put in. Step 9 is you get a formal mortgage offer. So this is after the valuation, and it can take up to 4 weeks, and it's valid for 6 months. In my case, the valuation was done on a Friday, so they came to the house, and then on the Monday I got the formal mortgage offer and the valuation report. So they were very quick. Step 10 is you might decide to do additional surveys, or like if you hadn't had a survey, like I looked at the survey before I even put an offer in, you would get your surveys done at this point. I got a sort of damp timber and brick inspection, and I also got 2 roofers to come and look at the roof. So you would do those kind of things, and sometimes that would give you a bit of leverage to go back and kind of chip away a bit more at the offer price. But I kind of kept the price the same. Some of the interesting things when I was talking to the solicitor was in the 1980s, Someone tried to turn my house into a hairdresser's, which is really random. She also was able to tell me how long the previous owner had lived here. And also my house has a ground rent of 5p a year, which I've never been asked for, and she said it's unlikely anyone's ever going to ask for it because it's such a small amount. Okay, now for some dates, because I think this can be interesting for a bit of context, but I can't believe how quickly things happened. So on the 6th of February, I appointed my solicitor. On the 7th of February, I met my mortgage broker. On the 8th of February, my mortgage application was submitted. On the 10th of February, the mortgage lender did the valuation. So that was like Monday to Friday, all those things happened. And it was the following Monday, the 13th of February, that the valuation report and the offer were put in. So yeah, so that's it. That's my story of how I ended up buying my first house. If you have any questions, leave them below. I tried to make this quite an educational video, so if you liked it, please can you give it a thumbs up, and bye.